Have you ever really wondered how a court lands on a specific dollar amount for child support? It's a number that completely shapes the lives of so many parents and kids. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that whole process. We're going to go from a real-life accounting ledger all the way to the official legal guidelines to see exactly how it works. Okay, let's get into it. So, take a look at this number, $1,128 a month. This is not just some random figure I pulled out of thin air. No, this is a real, court-ordered child support payment from an actual case file. And for the family involved, this number isn't an abstract concept. It's a huge piece of their daily reality. And here, we're getting a peek at an actual accounting ledger from a child support agency. You can see it right there, the monthly amount due, what was paid, and then how the total arrears, that's just the fancy word for the past due balance, starts to add up. I mean, look at just the first 2 months shown. Boom, the arrears are already over $2,000. It's a pretty stark look at how these payments work and how quickly things can stack up. So this brings us right to the big question, doesn't it? Where in the world does a specific number like $1,128 actually come from? It's definitely not arbitrary. It's not just a judge picking a number they feel is right. There is a very, very detailed system behind it all. And the answer, well, it all comes down to a standardized formula. See, most states, including Colorado, which is where this example comes from, they've put together this official data-driven rule book to guide the whole decision. The idea is to turn a really complex financial situation into one single enforceable number. So this is it. This is the Colorado Child Support Guidelines, the official rulebook for our case, and yeah, it's a pretty dense and detailed document, but its main job is to create a consistent standard for everybody. It's all about taking the guesswork out of the equation. Okay, so the entire system is really built on this one core idea. It's called the income shares model. And the philosophy behind it is actually pretty simple and powerful. It says a child should get the same slice of the financial pie that they would have received if their parents had stayed together. And this isn't a wild guess. It's based on real economic studies of how much families at different income levels typically spend on their kids. And they're super clear about why they do this. The guidelines themselves say the goal is to make awards more equitable by ensuring consistent treatment. In other words, two families who are in a similar financial boat should end up with similar child support outcomes. It doesn't matter which judge they get or what county they're in. It's all about finding fairness through a standard process. Right, so now we get the why. Let's dig into the how. What are the actual ingredients that get mixed into this formula? Well, it all kicks off with defining what counts as income. So the very first step is to figure out each parent's monthly gross income. And let me tell you, the definition is incredibly broad. Of course, it's salaries and wages, but it's also things like bonuses, pensions, any money you make from rent, and even big monetary gifts. The system is designed to get a complete picture of all the money that's available to support the child. But just as important is what does not count as income. The guidelines are really specific here. Things like public assistance benefits, food stamps or SSI, are totally excluded. And it makes sense, right? Any child support a parent gets for a kid from a different relationship also doesn't count towards their income for this calculation. So how does all this come together to make that final number? Okay, here's the basic 5-step process. First, you figure out each parent's gross income. Second, you add those two numbers together. Third, you take that combined income and look it up on a big master table to find the basic support amount. Fourth, you add in major costs like health insurance and childcare. And finally, you split that total bill between the parents based on their share of the income. Okay, so that's all the theory. Now let's connect these rules to reality. Let's see how they actually use the state's official tools to generate a real-world number. At the absolute heart of this whole process is this master table, the Schedule of Basic Child Support Obligations. You can think of it like a giant grid that matches up the parents' combined income with how many children they have. This table is the key that turns income into a dollar amount for support. Let's run through a quick hypothetical example to see how it works. Okay, let's say parent A makes $4,000 a month and parent B makes $3,000. Simple enough. Their combined gross income is $7,000. Now, if they have 2 children, we just go to the schedule, we find the row for $7,000, and we look over at the column for 2 kids. And bam, the table tells us the basic obligation is $1,839. Now, this is really important to remember. That number from the table, the $1,839, that's just the starting line. It's meant to cover the basics: food, housing, clothes.
From there, the court adds in the actual costs for big-ticket items, like work-related childcare or the monthly premium for the child's health insurance. That new, adjusted total is what becomes the final court order.
So after all these numbers, these tables and calculations, what's the big takeaway? What is this really complicated system actually trying to accomplish? Well, the ultimate goal here is to bring some predictability and fairness into what can be a really emotional and difficult process. By leaning on a standardized formula, the system is trying to make sure that the child's financial needs are met in a way that's consistent and, well, proportional to what the parents can actually afford to pay. But, this whole search for fairness through a formula, it brings up a huge question. Can a formula, no matter how detailed it is, ever truly capture the unique, messy, complicated financial realities of every single family out there? And that right there is the core tension in this ongoing effort to make child support as fair as it can possibly be.